Okay, so welcome back, guys. I thought I'd go back into the last demo that I did and just try to refine a little bit more in this area here and talk about what I would push or pull. Okay, now here's one of the funny things is that if I was working on this for a studio or if it's freelance or something that I had to get done very quickly, there is a certain valid point about having a really rough design. In fact, let me just mention that in the beginning. What we're doing right now, since this is a beginning introduction to painting class, is you guys are sort of rendering the heck out of it and trying to get the dark to lights, a full value scale from like lights to dark in terms of the spectrum of color that you're using, making it more interesting, adding the details. That's because you're starting off at an introductory level and it's your first time. Once you've done this about 20, 30 times, there hits a point where sometimes you only have 10 minutes to knock a character out. And you have to like jump in there really quick. You might have 5 characters and your production manager comes up and says, or associate producer, and they say, hey, guess what? I need all these characters by 1 o'clock. We're sending them overseas. You have to get it done. So you're not going to go to lunch. You're going to sit at your desk and you're going to adjust your time and say, well, if I got an hour and 15 minutes, that's 25 minutes every character. Boom, jump on it. And sometimes you can get a better approach that way. Why? It's like sketching, okay? Because you're working on something and you sort of don't care. You lose that impersonal or that personal belief system about, oh, I can't screw this up. And when you're forced to work a little bit faster, sometimes the outcome ends up being a little bit better. So just to sort of go over that, I don't always go through this process. Sometimes I just select something on a drawing with the selection tool, and then I adjust it with levels. I throw texture on it, and then I throw highlights. I blend a couple things, and I'm done, and I move on to the next character. All of it has to dictate with time and what your turnaround time is. Okay, so mentioning that, when I come back in here, when I first started these sketches, I was working on a pitch. Okay, and so that's where I sort of got to on mine. I didn't want to over render it anymore because this is just a pitch. This is for me to show this idea this was going to be for a children's book that I wanted to create or for an animation property. I have everything together and there's enough for me to show to somebody that they can make changes if they want very quickly. Okay. However, you guys are having the luxury to get in here and refine some of your characters a little bit more. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Okay. So I just thought I'd bring that up in the beginning here. As I get in this and render a little bit more, this guy might look a little different than my standard approach because sometimes I'm limited on time, between teaching, working freelance, I don't have hours like you guys have in the classroom to sit and render. So that's just something to keep in mind. First thing I'm going to do when I look at this character is one of the first things I notice is my line color. Okay, so if I come up here and I take off my line, I can look and see how my values are holding together and what I might need to work on. There are areas that I need to work on. I have some transitions and values that aren't really happening too good in here, and I could quickly come in here and I can address some of that. Now, there is a time when I like having what I call this sort of rough painterly approach. Some of you guys are rendering, which is okay. After a little bit more time and practice, you might build up a little bit. This is what I'm talking about when I mention a rough approach, is you might be getting in here and you're like painting something down and you get this very sort of rough painterly effect where see how you can see the brush strokes? That's not a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a different style and approach. That's the way I like to paint because I'm sort of influenced more by the Impressionists, and I like that allows me to get into sort of lost and found edges on something that I'm working on. Okay, but for what some of you guys are doing here, you're much more refined. All right, so first thing I might do when I get in here is number one, I want to drop that line quality down a little bit more because I want to get some values to sort of hold this together a little bit better. Okay, so I'm dropping my line down to about 43% there. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to paint on top of my local, and I'm going to label this Phil's Refinement. Okay, for today, so you can see what I'm going to do. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I have areas of dark back here. Do you see back here? So if I come up with a swabber, look at that. Look at how light that is. I can darken that up. That's in the very back of his neck. Look under here. It's not that dark. Under here, I mean, I have little areas of values that I can come in here and start to adjust and get this face to pop a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to address that right now. So working on another layer up here. Let's come down here. And first thing I like to do sometimes is I just like to start with the local. Let me duplicate this local too. That way I can show you before and after. There we go. And then what I'll do is we'll turn this one off, and we'll call this local refine, because this is the one I'm going to work on today. Okay, so depending on the time that I have, let's say I don't have much time, I need to get this done quickly. I'm just going to come in here and select little areas like this. They're going to be darker, and I'm just going to darken them very fast with the selection tool. And then I can come over and I can take a couple smudge brushes, and then I can start to alter some of those. Get the inside of that nostril there. The heck was that? Is that a phone? It's okay. Thought I was in a circus for a minute. Okay, there. So look, if I come over, I darken that little area like that, hit OK, deselect, and then I have this dark little value there. And what I can do is I have some smudge tools set up under different brushes here. Okay, and if I come over, hold on a second, let's go down to smudge. Let's see. And all right, and I could lightly come over, and I could just sort of blend these values in real quick. This is the way I sort of prefer to work, because I think it's a little bit faster and I can still be a little rougher. I'm going to try to blend some of that together. That was missing some of there's like a huge smudge mark in there that wasn't quite looking correct. I need to come up in here, see where the lip overlaps. I need to define that little area. See, I have like a yellow highlight in there that really isn't working. Let's just say I go to brush and try to get some of that in. So if I come down here to about 50, I might come over here and see if I can brush just a little bit of that down on there. That's weird. I was painting on it. Something weird was happening there. There we go. Define this lower lip a little bit so it gets the other one to stick back. I like little gradients. I'm a firm believer from rendering to little gradients. So this is what a little gradient is to me. Little pits and areas of dark and light that have quick gradation. So if I have something like that, and then I lightly go like that, see, I get that little gradient effect in there. I think that's really important to a piece, adding little bits of detail. So I might come in here, and I do that sometimes by selecting a little area. Okay, I'm going to go to a little bit more of a blue. And I might come in here and just sort of, with my brush at like a 40%, just hit along that edge right there. Do you see that? And then I drop down to like 10 or 20%, and then I sort of fade that up. Okay, and I get this little bit of dark in there. I might come in here under part of the nostril, because that might have a little bit of tint of blue in there, and I might just hit that for a little bit under there. Might have the back under right here. Fade over, maybe the back of this eye, maybe a little bit of that here coming off, and I just sort of work into my character trying to get some of those little values to pop in there. Okay. Let's select the local here. Let's say I want a shadow. So what I'm going to do is just select in here like this. Right now I'm going to go to levels real quick. Okay, I'm going to create a little bit of a shadow there like that. Deselect. Oops. And then I'm going to come back over. Let's go to a smudge option. I really like smudging quite a bit. It's a nice way to get values to sort of blend together. Again, you could use any of the brushes that I gave you, or you could create your own little adjustments. Okay. Since that's a little bit of a shadow, I'm going to come back with my blue now and paint a little bit of blue in there. Have that weird, oops, didn't mean to do that. I changed brushes by accident. Actually, that's not, sort of wanted to use that one. I have this weird, super bright highlight up there. I got to find out which one. See that yellow on that lip? I want to get rid of that, and I forgot which one it is. So let me adjust some of these. What I should do is I was keeping all these on one layer. And I think what I need to do is merge them all together. Let's see if it's that one. That was the eye. That was some highlights. Okay, let's just merge those together. And then let's bring those down here. Hold on a minute. Sorry guys, I should have done this in the beginning here. All right. Okay, sorry about that. I had to pause. I had a little bit of a layer mix up in there. Okay. I'm going to get in here too a little bit, define some of this. I'm already noticing just having some of those values in there and the way some of that's taking place. He's getting a little bit more refined because I can come back in and take the line off and I can see how part of his outside structure is holding together. I still need to blend a little bit more in there, but I can look at the difference of where I was from before. Before, see, he's less refined. These edges aren't as defined. And now when I turn him back on like this, he has a lot more value sort of holding part of his face together. So that's good. That's what I want. I want to keep working then from that point and seeing how else he develops. Okay? So let's do that for a couple minutes here. Let's turn back on the line a little bit, use that as a guide. I mean, my line's down to, it's 40-something%. And if I were to keep rendering this guy, I hope he'll probably get down to about 25%, where I barely even see it and the values just taking over the character. Okay? There we go. Let's come back in here and let's just work on him for a little bit. It's funny, I didn't do much work down here on the body. Now I'm sort of like, want to get that area a little bit more information in there. I'm going to have to turn up part of my line quality because I can't remember what part of his hand was doing. Okay. By the way, if you didn't know this, I think I mentioned this to you guys before. If you're working and you hit R, you can just do this. Okay, if you just hit R for rotate. If you hit R, rotate, and shift, it'll lock into the segments. Because that way, if you guys have the nice Cintiqs in this class that turn, depending at your angle. Mine doesn't turn. It's a large one, so it just stays stationary. So if there's something you want to do, just hit R real quick, and you can just spin your pen like that. And you can get, like if you're doing a long stroke that's going to affect a certain way that you're painting, that's the best way to address it. All right, let me get in here. I didn't realize how far, but I only worked on this character's face, so there's a lot of this area that I still need to develop. Forgot how I did that hand, but that's okay. Sorry guys, some of this I didn't refine before. I didn't have the bowl painted in or anything else, so now I need to get in here and get a little bit of that addressed. pause for a minute. I'm going to work for a couple. Okay, sorry about that. I just paused for a little bit. What I was wanting to do was I was trying to just identify more of the values. Some of this hadn't been worked out, and so just like I was doing up here, I'm just getting some darkers. I'm getting some edges in here. I'm also coming in with my eraser and starting to clean up little bits of overspray or areas that weren't working, like right here by the foot. I didn't need any of that. That's in right there. And you know, you have to do that on a regular basis. Not only do you have to do that with areas that you're painting, but then I'll come back into the line too, and I'll realize like, hey, I don't need that line, or I've identified that mass, that value shape, so that's something I can get rid of. And so I just keep building forward from there. And I'm starting to look at this now, and I'm like, okay, I like that body shape. Now I can start getting in here and going for some texturing, some details, just like I did up here. I want some more spots wrapping the shape. I like this sort of this smoothness of the character that's working right now, and then I would get in here and start defining some of those values. So let's just, to do this quickly, let's just say we throw a couple of textures in there, get some of those to pop out, get some highlights in there. You know, when I zoom out, I'm okay with how some of the values are working. It's got a little bit more blue down here, but that's okay. I sort of like having something different. And I do like to, you know, just to, like we talked about with Lexi's work earlier, what if I take this guy right now, and what if I just see what would happen if I made some adjustments on him really quick. So here I'll copy and paste him, and let's just move him up right here to where he is. And then I'm just curious, if I go to like hue and saturation, what might be like a positive or negative effect if I slide this around a little bit. And actually nothing's really working at all. I don't like anything. I like the way that I have them, so actually I hit cancel there. I did want to go in here. Let's try a couple of the midtones. I want to put a little bit more. Oof. Way too much. That's sort of cool though. Different. That if it was desaturated a little bit more. That's sort of nice. I don't like that, having that little bit of that red tint in there that works into the face as well. I like that. Just a little bit of adjustment in there, a little bit more. Okay. So let's texture. There's no real texture or lines. I want some lines wrapping over his body, accentuating his form that he has in here. So I'm just going to do that really quick by selecting part of the lasso tool here, and maybe he'll have a little spot in here. So it can be done with spots, it can be done with lines, textures. It might be, you know, part of the scales that he have. And I'm going to create another layer. Actually, I was sort of tempted to try some type of a gradient on there. See something up there. So all I did with that is just to walk you through that. I selected some little areas to get those spots. and then I created sort of a gradient from this green to a little bit of this orange, and then I created a new layer above, and I put those spots on there, and then I just dropped it. Pure opacity was right there, and then I dropped the opacity down quite a bit to get them to blend in a little bit like that. That's sort of cool. I like those. I like the way that's working, and I think that blends in. Also goes a little bit along part of the crease right in there. Okay, so let's commit to that. Take off the line and see where we're at. So I can see like a couple little areas here. I could, come back in here. I need to erase a little bit, get this a little bit tighter in there. Let's see which one I'm on. Got a couple different layers here. Okay. All right, a little bit of difference there. Turn that back on, drop the line down even more. So you can see the more that I refine them, the more that I adjust the values, that line's almost just dissipating. Okay, I do need to get in here. I need some highlights too, and I haven't really addressed that yet. So I might come over here and do that real quick, and I'll pause. I'll show you some highlights, and then I'll just sort of wrap it up. I want to try to keep this demo to about 30 minutes, but you can see just sort of the difference of how I'm developing it, refining it, losing the line, keep refining it, adding some color, adjusting values, and then walk away from it, take a break, come back with a fresh set of eyes and look at it and see what there is to adjust. Okay, so let me pause again real quick and then I'll be right back. Okay guys, so I just came back. I'm going around class and helping more people, so I think I'm just wrap up the demo here, but you guys sort of get the point. That the thing that I really want to reiterate on this and go over is that, look at what happens when you take off the line. Look at how the character is holding together. I have enough information here that is staying together with that line off because the values are working. The values they're smoothing out, they're rounding. Again, create black, put it on a layer above, put it on hue and saturation, and look, I could even check the values. So I even know I can maybe darken part of this arm, or I could look down here. Some of this is rough. I didn't erase around part of this. So I have some of those little adjustments to make. Okay, so this is going to be a quick demo because I need to go through the class, but in terms of what we were wanting to get to is just the polishing and the refining of this. Let's take a look at where we were. Okay, that's where we were before. Oh wait, no, we were right there. Okay, and you can see how rough it was, and then look at the changeover. So from there, okay, then we refined it up a little bit more. Then I changed a little bit of the color. Okay, I added in a couple more highs in there to get it to pop a little bit. And so when you start putting all these together, let's just see if I combine these two. Okay, and just look at the difference. That's where we were, and then a little bit of color change, a little bit more in there. And I could still get in a blended teeny bit more in there, but there's enough in there for me to work, and I've really refined it. And so once I refine it, looked at the color, I still could come back looking at this and maybe punch up a couple little darks here, That's pretty good under there, but I could smooth that together a little bit. So things you want to try to avoid: real heavy, thick brush strokes going across, having what I call splotchiness. Splotchiness would having like stuff like this, where I can see all the angles. See, I can just see like the brush in there. You see that? That's splotchiness, okay? I'm not getting that smoothness. So again, to get part of that smoothness, some of that is just about you getting in here and just very lightly with your brush, working up and building that transition in color, getting that skin grade to feel really nice and smooth as it moves across. Even there, look, I have that black line in there. I just think I did that by accident. It's just me selecting, look, and if I paint over that, try to get rid of, actually, let me make sure it's not on another layer. It's not on that layer. What layer is it on? There it is. So it is on that layer. So I'm going to get in here, paint some of that out. Okay. Get that gone, get some transitions there. So now it's starting to leave. I don't have that heavy brush stroke in there. So that really adds up to adding part to the character. Okay. And I turn off that version there. So that's sort of what I wanted to leave you guys with. And still, I need to refine it and do another demo, but now we're sort of out of time, and this just gives you a better idea of really starting to polish up and get to that end stage. And again, your end goal, when I come back here and show you guys when I did this guy before, you know, I did him pretty rough, but this is where I sort of got to. But, you know, there was enough for presentation purposes. So anyway, have fun. We'll see you soon.